DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
Good morning, or nearly good afternoon. Mitch, thank you very much indeed for that intro. You've just stolen my intro. When it comes to the online world, and we are talking about online as opposed to digital, because everyone thinks of digital as something completely different, we live in an ever-changing environment. But one thing we can be certain of is that the internet is no longer a fad or a passing trend. It's intrinsic to our daily lives, and all business, and the cinema industry in particular, needs to address the challenges that this new world sets us. Technology has always driven change, and our challenge as an agency has always been to be one step ahead of it. Right now, we're probably seeing the biggest single change in how people use and access the internet. We're here today to give you an insight into what is driving this change and what cinema exhibitors in particular can do about it. We'll offer some directional tips, and hopefully you'll be able to apply them to your business in whatever stage you are at the moment. But first, I'd like to introduce the people standing before you. I'm MacMillan. I'm Business Development Director of Peach Digital. I've got a background in marketing, consumer and business to business, 25 years. And I've worked for DHL, global advertising agency J. Walter Thompson, and before Peach, I worked for Scottish Media Group, and we looked after a range of media assets, including TV, radio, and cinema. Patrick, to my left, who will be roaming the stage, is our design director. He's worked on global campaigns for HTC, and more recently, he's helped Sony launch 4K in Europe and rebranded NATO. Patrick specialises in design and online user experience. We're from Peach Digital, and for half of our business is in the cinema sector. And in that respect, we are a specialist agency. We're based in Glasgow, which is still in the UK, and I hope will remain there. And we work around the world, and we've worked with over 15 cinema exhibitors in 7 countries and 8 time zones, as well as Real D, Sony, and NATO. We do these things. We do everything really, from strategy through to implementation of campaigns, websites, emails, CRM, and so on. And we work with a lot of great partners in the cinema sector, such as Vista, Radiant, and hoping to work with Movio as well. I think probably most importantly what we bring today is 13 years of online insight. We've worked with in the sector for since 2000, and the data and trends and insight that we've gathered over that time gives us the opportunity to come here and give you a little slice of that insight, maybe a slice of peach. And as I said at the beginning, there's one big trend that's happening right now and accelerating, which is going to affect your business. It affects the way consumers are accessing and using websites and accessing your businesses, and represents a massive challenge to the sector. It's multi-screen.
So it's the access to new and more convenient technologies that's driving the way that users will access and interact with you online. Because today, we're all walking around with full access to GPS, messaging, our social channels, plus the ability to buy anything straight from our pockets. According to Google, 74% of people go online every day through the smartphone. And we expect to be able to do the same things from these devices that we could do on our laptops and desktops before. Now, who actually uses the internet today? Just in the last 6 years, the internet usage has gone up to around 80% and above in the developed world. And that means that that number is now higher than in the average country, the amount of people who owns a car, which means that more people can buy a ticket to your theater than the amount of people who can then drive themselves there to go and see it. So we're getting fairly close to kind of saturation point of the amount of people who have internet access. Well, that is until toddlers and babies start to get it. But what we're seeing now is a quantum shift in how people are accessing your online solutions. We looked at the global sales of internet-capable devices from 2006 and projected them onto 2017. What we're finding is that today, people are not replacing their old desktop and laptop computers with new ones. They're instead replacing them with smartphones and tablets. What that means is that over the last 8 years, we've seen like a huge growth in the amount of people who are buying smartphones. And especially for tablets. Tablets have only been on the market for a few years, but in some countries, we're already seeing over 50% of the adult population owning one. Now, what does that actually mean to people's experience online? And what they get when they access our content from these different devices? We looked at our portfolio of clients, and we saw that in 2012, we have an average of 70 different mobile devices accessing our website. So that means that we have 70 different user experiences, because each one of these devices have a different screen size, different resolution, and different functional capabilities. So what do? Do we create 70 different solutions, one for each device? Or do we take a step back and create one intelligent, responsive solution that caters for all of these users' needs and all of these different variables? Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that for each one of these devices, our users get the same fantastic experience that they expect. Now, this was in 2012. So if you fast forward that to today, we're seeing over 800 different unique devices hitting our website. And if you take into consideration all of the manufacturers of devices and the different models that they release every year, this still grows exponentially. What we're also seeing is that people are not just using one device. Globally, today the average sits at 2 internet-connected devices per user. In some markets, that's already way above 3. When people use multiple devices at the same time, it has a few changes to their online behavior in a few specific ways. For example, what you find is you might research your purchase on a smartphone during the day, and then you might make the purchase on your laptop or desktop at home in the evening. Or you might be watching a video on YouTube while tweeting or texting someone about that video on your smartphone. What that means is that when we're actually considering our user experience, we need to consider that going across multiple devices. And when we analyze our sales funnel and look at our statistics, again, we need to consider that across multiple devices. There's another emerging trend, and that is when people choose or are forced to choose, either for lifestyle or financial reasons, whether to get home broadband or to have mobile internet-connected devices, more and more people choose to pick the mobile internet devices above the home broadband. What that means is that around 1 in 5 of your customers today can only access your current mobile solution. So you probably want to make sure that's up to scratch and that works. So summing all of this up presents us with a few specific challenges for us to address in the years ahead. And that is, how do we use technology to make sure that selling becomes efficient in a multi-device world? And with all of these new channels and touch points, how do we avoid diluting our brand across all of these channels? And how do we engage with our customers, making sure that the conversations we're having with them stay relevant and personal?
And I'm going to pick up on the first of those, which is how how does multi-screen affect the way you sell online? I think firstly, we wanted to sort of figure out really what the potential of the market was here. And there's a huge range in terms of the share of online the total share of admissions being contributed by online. Some circuits have as little as 2% of their total sales being driven by internet. We experience quite regularly when all the stars are aligned, the technology is working, and there's a great movie on up to 95% of total box office, some showings going to the web. So that's great when you're thinking in terms of ticket sales and convenience fee. So naturally, the 2% is probably represented by exhibitors who are really not doing very much in the online sector. So bearing that in mind, our attitude is that every device, every platform should be considered a point of sale. In the sense that actually this is where you can enhance your revenue potential. It's a lower cost of sale, as you know. It stops people cluttering up the box office at the theatre. And it's also better user experience. It's one that they've clearly demonstrated that they want. And so what sort of contribution do these new points of sale represent? We went back to 2012. This is across all our clients. There's no individual client involved here. And 2 years ago, 90% of all the sales were coming, actual sales were coming from desktop and laptop. Mobile web was significant in that it was contributing 9%. And when I talk about mobile web, I'm not talking about all mobile, I'm talking about purely the percentage of sales coming from people looking at your website on a browser on their smartphone. Apps represent around just over 1% of all sales, and sales through Facebook, for example, the Facebook app, are negligible in this scenario. 2 years later, 2 years later, desktop clearly is lost, and pretty much lost all of it to mobile web. People are finding it very convenient and easy to use the mobile browser to access and crucially, buy tickets. Apps have gone up a little bit, and proportionally quite a lot, but they're still marginally over 1%, and social media remains negligible. And this seems to be pretty consistent with the growth of m-commerce globally. As a percentage of all e-commerce, global m-commerce is expected to reach 19% this year, and it will be nearly a quarter by 2017. But I think we need to put this into some kind of context, because actually the amount of traffic that is coming through to all of our sites at the moment from mobile, and when I talk about mobile, I'm talking about cell and tablet, around 55%, and actually probably more than that, of all traffic is coming from mobile, which is a huge amount, and it's considerably higher than all the other clients that we have, which it range somewhere between 15 and 30%. So the cinema audience really wants to engage with the exhibitor fraternity via mobile. And if you look at the sort of the trends moving forward, we reckon that this could, the way it's carrying on, the amount of traffic coming through from mobile and tablet is likely to reach 75% within the next 2 to 3 years, which is a huge challenge when you consider what you need to do to reach these customers and sell to them via their mobile devices. We did a little bit of desktop research against two very mature online sectors, travel and retail. We all know airlines are exceptionally good at getting this right. They have a lot of mobile solutions. And retail has also got a high, in fact, they're very mature in this sector as well. And we wanted to see how cinemas stacked up against this. And we just assessed them very simply. We looked at 150 sites around the world, and we just assessed them on whether they were actually catering for the mobile user. And the statistics that came out of that are really quite startling, I would say, especially when you consider the 55% traffic that's coming through to cinemas. only 34% of the 50 cinema sites that we looked at actually had a mobile solution. And this includes some really quite large players. And I think this really demonstrates how much further we need to go as an industry to move things forward. So I know we've chucked a lot of stats at you today. I just want to sort of try and sum up in terms of e-commerce what we want to do, what you need to do about this. And there's a basic truism in business, which is it's when your customers want to buy from you, let them. And I know that sounds rather glib and simple, but when you factor in what needs to be put in place these days to make that happen, it's actually maybe not quite as straightforward. We think that actually the answer lies in breaking it down into basic chunks. First of all, make it easy for people to buy from you. And what this means in the context of web is you create good user journeys which have no barriers to purchase. You create opportunity, you take learnings from, say, Amazon, places like that, and introduce one-click booking. I mean, some people may well be doing this already, but it's certainly something that needs to be accelerated. Using tokenization to allow people a simple way to access your sales channels is a very easy, simple thing to do. Making it easy to buy anything. I know everyone, some people sell gift cards, some people tell people to buy them at the box office. Really, we should be thinking in terms of selling absolutely everything you've got online as far as we possibly can, even down to venue hire. Gift cards, I think, is a particularly good online sales opportunity, given the fact that quite often it's third parties people buying for third parties who may not even live in the same state or country. So that's the only way they're going to be able to buy. Make it easy to buy anything on any device. Airlines are very good at effortless check-in. We should be getting better at that. There are mobile solutions out there which can be deployed relatively easily. This should be something which is becoming a matter of course. And also optimizing for devices. Probably the most important thing, and something that Patrick picked up on earlier, is making sure your website is optimized for and responsive to every resolution and screen size out there. It can be done, and this is something we're implementing as much as we can at the moment. And finally, at any time. As you all know, there's very high peak traffic when a big movie comes out and people wanting to buy online. The most annoying thing is if your technology platform is not up to it, coping with that kind of traffic. So I think the most important thing there is just to make sure your hosting is sorted out properly and your site is optimized and efficient. Patrick.
So with all of these new ways that people interact and engage with your brand, how do you avoid it becoming diluted, affecting your way or hampering your way to be able to sell effectively? Thank you. Because your brand is what makes you different. It's what makes your customers come and buy from you instead of the exhibitor across the road. It's what makes your customers' choice to buy from you an active instead of a passive one based just on product or price. Many brands today, cinema or not, are already finding challenges when you consider all the different channels that you're promoting yourself on. You have your website, hopefully a good mobile solution. You have a series of social networks that you use and you communicate on. How do you present a coherent presence across all of these different channels? And this graph here is already looking fairly complex, but this is before we're even considering what we talked about before, that we now have 800 different devices, and each one of these devices gives each user a different experience on each one of these different channels. Now, in this instance, it becomes nigh on impossible to maintain a cohesive brand presence unless you put a very strong, good strategy in place. You probably want to make sure you put that strategy in place now in order to allow you to sell effectively in the years to come. And with any good strategy, you also need a way to implement that strategy and to have people responsible for it. And that's no longer a part-time job of someone in the office that just happens to like to do this type of stuff. Now, maintaining effective conversations with your customers online is important, because we all know that relevant conversations increases people's engagement and their propensity to buy. So how does this trend of all of these different multiple devices affect your ability to communicate effectively online? So, let's take a look at Kate. Kate likes theatre, rom-coms, and sci-fi. Kate is one of your customers. We want to give her personalized content, promotions, and offer, because if we do that, she's more likely to buy from us and come back and buy again and say nice things about us to her friends. Now, Kate has a computer at work. She has a laptop at home, a smartphone, and a tablet. Now, that's fair enough, that's easy, but the technology behind your website doesn't see Kate. It sees user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4. That's not one conversation with one person. That's 4 conversations depending on what device he decides to use that day. Now, it doesn't stop there, because Kate is also one of the 26% of the adult population that uses social networks every day. We're on social networks, so we talk to her there. That means we also need to factor in the fact that she's on Google and Google+, she's on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So now we don't have one Kate, we don't even have 4, we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 different Kates that we're having different communications with. But we don't want 8 different Kates. We want one Kate, one single view of our customer. Now, there's a few different techniques that we can use to make us able to have this one single conversation. But we need to do it in a few different steps. First, what we need to do is we need to tie together all of the different devices that Kate is using, so that regardless of what device she has, we can follow that conversation. We also want to tie in what she does online on the website, because contrary to what my world, internet is not everything. There's also what they do in theatre. By using membership and loyalty schemes, we can tie all of that up. All of a sudden, we can have one conversation with these devices. But remember, we're not only talking about the different devices. We also have all of the different social channels that we're talking to Kate in, which means that we can use social logins and connected accounts, which are fairly common, easily implemented technologies, to connect together our conversations with Kate on Facebook and Twitter to our conversations with her through the website and email. Now, when we have these two in place, what we can then do is we can then tie all of them together using big data, or likewise, to take all our different conversations from the different channels, get them down in one place, which means we can analyze them, and all of a sudden we can take, doesn't matter if we have one conversation with Kate on Twitter where she talks about how much she likes sci-fi, and then she books a rom-com on our site, we know that's what she likes. We can have conversations with her through email or promotions, or personalize the website so that when Kate visits it, it's all relevant to her.
That was a pretty whirlwind tour of the effects of multi-screen on certainly the challenges on our industry and the cinema sector in general.